So what schools did you hit up after A&S then? Or after pre-dive, sorry.
After pre-dive, I believe my first one was water egress at SEER. Like with having such a big gap in between courses, like they tried to get you in as many other courses as you can to fill in time. So I went from water egress at SEER, which is the dunker, and I believe, I had the 2-day course there for the parachute and water survival, and then the resistance training as well.
Was that still at Panama City, or did you go up to Spokane for that?
That was Spokane for SEER.
Okay.
Was your SEER in Panama City?
No, I was talking about the water survival section. So you went to the dunker in Spokane. They used to do parachuting water survival down at NDSTC in Panama City and stuff. So I wasn't sure where they run it. So
was your
SEER?
SEER? SEER was actually great. The water egress, I'd say, was the most fun, and because you're coming straight from pre-dive, you're like,
you're a stud. You're like, this is exactly. Like even that. I actually took the regulator out of the SEER guy's mouth, the safety diver. That did not go over well. I thought it was a funny joke, apparently, because he was talking all this crap beforehand. He's just like, "Oh, you PJs, you think you're so good underwater." I was like, "Well, we are." So first of all, that's facts. Second of all, I was like, "You're breathing on a regulator." I was like, "You're not even doing a breath hold. You're just fat floating there." And so I accidentally swept his regulator. Probably not the best technique, but I don't know.
And nothing against the SEER guys, though. Their job's awesome, and I appreciate everything they do.
It is awesome. However, I think I'm going to get a SEER guy on just so I can make fun of them to their face. Never have a bad thing to say about SEER guys, but it is fun in the team room.
Yeah.
What question were you going to ask?
I was going to ask if your dive was in Key West or Panama City.
No, Panama City. It was the Air Force course had just stood up. So I think we were the third class. So there was the first class. The second class was just an absolute decimation. I want to say they only graduated like 10 students out of the 25 that started or something. And then like the 15 that got rolled back, that was like half of our class. So we were the third class. I did not go to Key West. We were still sending people to CDQC at that time, but there was a big focus on getting the Panama City dive school stood up. And then it went like we were still doing closed circuit at the time. So I was a closed circuit guy coming straight out. And they were playing around with the course curriculum and trying to make it work. So
shout out to Mr. McGinley.
Shout out. He's been there, dude. He was there when I was there. There's a couple names like those dudes just are still there. Just
gotta appreciate that.
Holler. Yeah. So SEER, I always say SEER is one of my favorite courses. So I was a regular dude. I went through it as a phys tech, and I distinctly remember when the resistance portion is over with and you're done. I distinctly remember being more proud to be an American than I'd ever been in my entire life. Like I've always said good things about that course. It is what it is, right? Like we can't really talk about what goes on there, and fine. And there's good things and there's bad things and blah, blah, blah. But I never felt prouder to be an American, really, coming out of SEER.
I'd say you said that best. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was super awesome. So SEER knocked out, cool. And then what'd you hit after that? Did you go to Airborne?
I did the Air Force appreciation course. Yeah. When I first heard that, I didn't get it because that was before going to Airborne, and then I went to Airborne, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
And then, and if you think back, so that's for you probably, a year, probably maybe a year and a half, when you were deciding between the 4 branches, you got to see exactly what people are talking about with the Army. It's, get on the wires at 4 a.m. Why? Well, because you got to report to your platoon leader, who's going to report to the squad leaders what he needs them to do. And then we're going to be good for a 6 o'clock show. Like, what am I doing here? I'm throwing rocks at helmets.
No, literally. Some things never change.
No, 100%.
That was like my first experience, like meeting the other branches and whatnot. We had a good amount of Marines there as well, a few Air Force guys. And obviously mainly Armies, but it was cool to like just meet other branches and whatnot. Yeah,
it is good. There is goodness, and it's funny to see the cultures. Like, you know, you get so used to, we are so myopic when we're talking about, our like PJs are really different than Control. It's funny how the different tribes, like they're just different, right? And you look at that, well, like that's like this much. you see the Army and the Navy, and it's like, you're like, oh my God, you guys are completely different animals. Like, you guys are just completely different in everything that you do. I had to go back. So I was a rescue jump master, that course that happened during my birthday. So I was a jump master for, I don't know, like 10 years or something, I don't know, like 9 years. So I was a jump master. And then they didn't require me to go back through the formal schools, because as long as you're in ACC or the schoolhouse, if you're a rescue jump master, you're fine. You can just you can do whatever you want. It's not the same in AFSOC. So no kidding, the first courses that I took when I got here, I've been in for 18 years. So 18 years, I was a master sergeant, and they were like, hey, if you want to be a jump master, you got to go through the formal courses. And I was like, yeah, but do I? And they were like, right. Yeah, you do. So I was like, all right, yeah, let's go. So I had to go down. I went back to Fort Benning to go to static line jump master. And I had more static line jump master jumps than the commandant of the school, like the lead black hat there. Like,
right.
He pulled me aside after we were done. He's like, hey, can I tell you something? I was like, yeah, what's up? He's like, I have like 45 static line jump master jumps. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's awesome. He was like, you have like way more than that. And I was like, he's like, why did you have to come back here? I was like, I don't know, my guy, but here I am. So just
do what I'm told.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, that was Air Force appreciation 3 weeks for me too. I was happy to go back to that. Well, that's cool. So you got those wings. You had a course that's really about 5 training days packed into 3 weeks worth of time.
Unfortunately,
you made it out. You made it out at Columbus, Georgia. Congratulations. And then you found yourself down at dive school. How was your experience at dive school?
It's like what I was most nervous, I'd say, which is kind of crazy after being through everything thus far.
Same for me, man. Dive school was highly stressful for me. Highly.
I remember like looking at the pipeline on airforce.com, like when I was still looking at careers, and it'll say like basic training, give you a description, SWIC, description, ANS. And I was like, okay. Like,
got it.
All right, pre-dive's going to be tough. Like that's where they're really training you. But I always remember like specifically looking at combat dive and being like, oh, this is going to be the real kicker. This is what I'm most nervous for. And if I were to compare them, like they're different, pre-dive and combat dive, but I would have said pre-dive is harder overall.
Okay.
I'd say combat dive was just freaking awesome.
Yeah.
It's tough, but
did you fail anything? Amazing. Did you have to refire?
Ooh, I don't like to admit it. And
well, I'll tell you I had to refire. It was the only thing in the pipeline. So I only had to refire 2 events in my entire pipeline. Like, no kidding. For whatever reason, when I was at Indoc, I was fast as crap at ditch and don. I could do ditch and don in like 10 seconds. Like it did not like, I would talk shit about ditch and don. Like I was pretty good in the pool. I was a water polo player. And exactly. And I would piss the instructors off because I would go down, I would do ditch and don, I would come right back up. And I'd be like, yeah, done. It's really not that hard.
Feel fine.
So yeah, I failed that. I had to go to like my last, like no kidding, the very last one. I went down on my first eval for ditch and don. I passed my pull-ups. I passed everything else. We were literally almost done with my final eval out of Indoc. I went down, put it down, came up like normal, and they were like, "Love, you failed." And I was like, "No, I didn't." And they were like, "No, we're serious. You failed." And I was like, "No, shit."
No.
So I had to come back the next day, and a very famous chief, Ron Thompson, he just retired. RT was the one. Like I went down, I ditched it, I came up. He had to like swim over and talk to Mr. Kilbride and go, like, they had this like back and forth. And like he's like hanging on the side of the pool, and he's like looking at me and shaking his head. And they're having this really quiet conversation. And Mr. Kilbride's like, "All right, love, just go down, put it on, take your time." But it was that. And then when I got to dive school, again, fine in the pool, the first time that I went one man, I could not figure out that it was the whammy knot. And I ended up going hypoxic. And the instructor essentially had to save me. And he was like, "Dude, you failed." He was like, you asked for the regulator. And immediately I was like, "No, I did not." I was like, "Absolutely not." And he was like, "Hey there, Sergeant Love.
Yeah.
If you asked for the regulator, then you just fail. If you just had a shallow water blackout and I had to give you the regulator, we have to pull you." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I totally asked for that regulator."
There you go.
He gave me a benefit there, but I failed that. The walk back to the, from the dorms, to the pool to refire my one man. That was a long walk, my friend. It was a long walk.
Yeah, I can one up you, and it took me on my third attempt for one mans, unfortunately, and those were some of the like hardest, most just stressful days, like because you only have one shot that day to do it, and you have just the rest of the day to think about what you did wrong.
Well, and we talk about it, but you're hitting something that until you're in that space, like this is your whole life, dude. Yeah. Your whole career, everything that you've done up to that point. When people ask me what the hardest part about the pipeline is that every single day you have the chance to leave the pipeline.
Yep.
People do not understand how stressful that is and what kind of focus, laser focus you need to have, because every single day is another chance for you to leave the pipeline and to waste all of that time, all those happy phone calls with your families, all that success that you felt, all that self-doubt that you were able to overcome. Doesn't mean anything unless you can pass. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. But here you are. Here you stand wearing that new dive badge. I love it, by the way. Having our own dive badge. It looks like a combat diver badge. That's
exactly awesome. Love the logo.
Love it. Shout out. Good branding, everybody. And now here we are. So what's your next step?
Yeah, so I'm just waiting to go to SRAC, which is the Special Recon Apprentice course. There is one in January coming up, so I'm not on the roster to go to that yet. There are a bunch of much better studs that have been waiting on Red Team, which is where we're at now, ahead of me. And if I do make it on there, great. I'll be super nervous for that, the next thing. But if not that one, I think I'll hit Free Fall and then SRAC in the spring. So just more time to train and get better.